In this episode, How to Buy and Sell Real Estate for Financial Freedom, there's about 4 strategies that you can find in almost every successful real estate investor's story. But there should be about 5 strategies, and I'm going to tell you about the one they leave out in this segment. How to Buy and Sell Real Estate for Financial Freedom. In this episode, How to Buy and Sell Real Estate for Financial Freedom, Part 1, I'm going to take you through a 3-part series that tells you about the 4 basic strategies that almost every successful real estate investor has in their story. But maybe, just maybe, there should be 5 strategies. There's one strategy that they're leaving out. I want you seasoned investors to hang with me through Part 1 and Part 2, because in Part 3, I'm going to give you a revelation that's going to make perfect sense. Real estate investing is a huge topic. Today we're going to talk about how people who started out, how they started, what strategies did they use. They're basic strategies, and though they may be a little mundane for you seasoned investors, hang with me. These basic strategies are bird dogging and wholesaling. The reason why these 2 strategies are used most frequently by beginners is because you can get into them with zero money if you learn the techniques. That's why we start with them. Everyone I know started broke. Almost everyone I know started as a bird dog or a wholesaler, me included. Bird dogging is perhaps the easiest way to jump into the real estate investing business. And why is that? It involves stirring up a bunch of dust, finding someone who might be interested in selling, and then running that prospect over to a professional who can help you close it. Why are we doing it like this? It's because we don't have the skills adequate enough to do it ourselves. We're trying to get involved, so we're going up and stirring up the dust, and we're finding people that say, yeah, I might like to sell my house. And we're running it to a pro so we can sit back and watch and listen and learn from them from the sidelines. And because if the deal gets consummated, we might get a little paycheck. So we're getting paid to learn how to do the business when we're bird dogs. And we can do it with absolutely zero money. If you're a bird dog, there's a few things you'll want to make note of. Number 1, make sure the person you're dealing with is fair and capable. You wouldn't want to be A, doing business and not getting paid because your mentor or coach wasn't a fair person, and B, you want him to be capable because you certainly don't want to learn from someone who's doing it wrong. The object of being a bird dog is to move to the next level and be a wholesaler where you're negotiating, where you're writing the contract, where you're getting yourself into a position where you have a valuable set of papers called a contract. In order to do that, you've got to study the pros, and we get in as bird dogs. Now the next step is to be a wholesaler. You want to go from a bird dog to being a wholesaler. You make more money as the wholesaler, you're in more control, and you decide how much profit you're going to make on these deals. But you have to be a great negotiator, and you have to learn how to write a solid and good and fair and strong contract. Wholesaling is not that much different from being a bird dog in the fact that we're all starting out broke. It doesn't take much money to be a wholesaler either. Your job is to go into a motivated seller, get him to agree to a contract with little or no earnest money, and then give you some time to be able to close. And then we're going to take our position in this contract and we're going to sell it. And that's called flipping a house, but really it's not flipping a house. You flipped your position on a house. So let's walk over to the board here and I'll give you an example with some real numbers. Okay, so I've gone and gotten my whiteboard, and now we're going to go over a typical wholesale deal. First, we have to establish an ARV, or an after repaired value. And for this example, let's say that we're going to buy this $200,000 value ARV, or $200,000 after repaired. Now let's say that this house needs $30,000 in repairs. Now let's say that we negotiate to buy this house despite all of its problems for $100,000. If we buy this house for $100,000 and it needs $30,000 in repairs, we're going to be all in for $130,000. If we're in for $130,000 right here, and we can sell this house for $200,000 right here, then we have a net profit in front of us of about $70,000. And the reason why I say about is the math says exactly $70,000, but no plan goes as we first conceive. But we're shooting for a $70,000 profit on this house. Now this is what our contract says we can do. It says we can buy this house for $100,000. We can put $30,000 into it, and then we can sell it for $200,000. This is a very valuable contract. Right now, that's all we own if we get the seller to sign this contract. That's what we'll own. But what a wholesaler does is he sells that contract, and let's say in this case we're going to sell it for $20,000. Can we sell it for $20,000? Certainly we can. It'd be easier if we only sold this contract for $10,000, but I think there's enough profit, $70,000, that I can take a little more than $10,000 on this wholesale deal. I think I can take $20,000 and still find a buyer out there that's willing to settle for a $50,000 profit. $50,000 is still a lot of money. So we're going to sell the contract for $20,000, and that will leave our buyer to still have a potential profit of $50,000. Now ask yourself, how many of these wholesale deals do I have to do to be a success? I would venture to say for some people, just 1 or 2 a year would make all the difference. So let's make note of just a couple of key things. Number 1 is, this didn't take any money but some earnest money. All I had to do was convince the seller to take some earnest money, to give me a sales price of $100,000 and give me the contract right here. But what we need the most when we're doing wholesaling is time. How many days do I have before I have to come up with this $100,000 and consummate this deal for my seller? So there is no standard amount of time. Real estate agents will try to tell you, the standard amount of time on a contract is 30 days to close. There is no standard anything. It's whatever you can negotiate. The seller may be trying to negotiate that you close in 10 days because he wants his money fast. You may need more time. You're trying to negotiate 90 days before you have to close. Whatever you can negotiate, the better. But the more time you have as a wholesaler, the better off you are. Again, bird dogging, the goal is to move up to the next level wholesaling. The goal as a wholesaler is to move up to the next strategies we're going to be talking about in part 2. Okay? But sooner or later, every bird dogger and every wholesaler comes to the same conclusion. This is a job that you have to keep doing over and over and over again. You are a professional entrepreneur, and you have a job, but it's an entrepreneurial job. And every time you consummate one of these deals, you have to go out and find another one to do it, and it's a never-ending cycle. And it's not how you build wealth or freedom. It's a good start, though, because you're starting to get into the arena, you're starting to build networks, you're starting to learn the language, you're starting to get contacts, you're starting to get good at what you do, you're starting to get some money in the bank, you're starting to get confidence of those around you. Then it'll be time to move up into the wealth building strategies, which we're going to talk about in part 2. Now, there's only one way to move these strategies here, the bird dogging and the wholesaling strategy, into kind of a hands-off, watch someone else do it for me business, and that is through systematization and delegation. And I do know people that have turned both bird dogging and wholesaling into businesses that they work on and not in. That's a whole different challenge. So we've talked about bird dogging and wholesaling as probably the first 2 strategies in the progression, the natural progression of an investor. In part 2, we're going to talk about the next 2 progressions, which will be the fix and flip and the buy and hold. And then in part 3, stay with me, I'm going to give you the revelation of that 5th strategy that most people never think about and don't use. And I'm going to show you why we should use that strategy to circumvent a lot of the problems that we know we have when we just go those 4 steps instead of going a 5th step. So stick around, make sure you hit that like button if you're enjoying this. Also, if you've got some friends in the business that need to hear this, make sure you hit that share button.